Hello and welcome. My name is James, this is the Dancing Geek podcast, and I have not very much to show you today in terms of foes and whips. Quite a lot to show you today in terms of stash enhancement. So it's going to be all about shiny new yarn. But first of all, let's see what I've got in terms of whips. Quick interjection with some good news. Later on in the podcast, I am going to actually be launching the Lanitium X Machina giveaway! Oh yes! The first whip I'm going to show you guys is the Even Star. The reason for that is just because I've not got a particularly interesting amount of progress done on it. It's now obviously a much slower knit, and I've done a lot less knitting in terms of hours on it. So I'm not, rather than spreading it all out and doing it like I showed you last time, I'll just hold up a section so you can see kind of the pattern going on there. So that's where I am. It's something like a half, 2/3 of the way through the second chart for those of you who've got the pattern. The hardest thing about this has been correcting mistakes, particularly dropping stitches or tinking back when, sorry, I've just spotted a slight, you know, when a pattern like in stockinette doesn't quite look right, but it's just the stretches need to stretch, the stitches need stretching out. So yeah, the actual knitting of the pattern is pretty straightforward. It's dealing with when things go a little bit wrong, like if I miss a yarn over, having to keep track of stitch count, things like that. And certainly if I make enough of a mistake that I have to try and rebuild a section of it, whereas with stockinette or garter and stuff like that, you can drop a stitch, let it fall down and then rebuild it. With something like this, because you've got so many stitches that connect up and split off and what have you, several columns can be impacted by one stitch going wrong. So it all kind of gets a little bit trickier, and has required me to sit there and draw pictures out and really think about, oh right, which stitch is this? So that's the only part that's hard. So it's kind of like potentially off-putting for that reason. There's lots of white hairs poking out of this, which must be from the yarn, because I don't have a white cat and they're sort of embedded into the fibre of the yarn. I wonder if that's the alpaca or the silk. Must be the silk. Silk doesn't take colour as well, does it? Just a bit of a shame that it's all coming out. That's the dropped lace that's doing that. Baby alpaca and mulberry silk. But it's, yeah, as it's knitting up, it's just gone very, it's got lots of white hair sticking out of it that looks all kind of kinky and not very good. I might stop pulling at it and just sort of try and trim them off rather than pull them out at a later date. But yes, so this is the gorgeous purple yarn, and it's still good fun to knit. As you can see, I didn't complete it in time for the end of the FO&I shawl cowl, which to be honest was kind of obvious. But you know, I still wanted to see what would happen. But no, there was way too much else I had going on, so it wasn't gonna happen. So whip number 2, which is the last of my whips, is the old chestnut that is the Cassiopeia square bag. Let me just get this out without pulling all the yarn out. Okay, here we go. So this is the one that starts with this gorgeous, gorgeous patterning, which is really, really simple to do. I've seen similar patterning with instructions where it's all short rows on the inside and stuff, and I suppose that's a more true flat version of this pattern. But this one, it's a free pattern, the Cassiopeia square bag. And this one, it's really, really simple. I think it's just slip stitches, yeah. You just do a couple of slip stitches for the bits that pull down, and it takes it from what would otherwise be very simple stripes, very thin and thick stripes, into this gorgeous honeycombing style pattern, which is absolutely beautiful. And I love the colours. The multicoloured yarn is one of Ellie's from FO and Dye. It's on her Galen base, and it was called Great Barrier Reef because it was part of a sort of a dyeing challenge that she did along with Laura from Jinx Yarns and Kristen from Woolenvine. And it was on the Natural World or the Wonders of the World or something like that. Anyway, Ellie chose the Great Barrier Reef and dyed up this gorgeous, gorgeous multicoloured sock yarn. And then the dark blue is the same as Travels Down Here, where you can see it on its own in all its lovely sort of slightly toned glory. Well, it's not so much tonal as, I don't know, because it's not variegated either. Is that what you call tonal when there's more than one colour in there, but the colours, it's almost like it's been over dyed in places slightly or something like that. I'm not sure. I'm not sure how much you can see as well, because the camera from here isn't looking great, but there's this really lovely navy blue, and it's got these splashes of these different greens, just making it really feel like sort of a murky, watery sort of colour, which is great because you've got kind of like it's all kind of watery themed, and this one is called, I think it's Blue Lagoon or Dark Lagoon or something like that. Tropical Lagoon, there we go. So this one is Tropical Lagoon by Natural Born Dyers, and I think these colours are awesome. Now in terms of actual work done, what I didn't have on here was a progress marker. That's how long ago it is since I worked on this. It's before I even started putting progress markers on, and that was a little while ago because it must have been a few podcasts. But I've done probably an inch or so on this. Basically, I needed something I could take out to hang out with friends because they had babies with them, and I thought, well, babies are rather demanding of parental attention, and I don't want to just be sat there feeling like a numpty whilst my friends are dealing with their kids. So I thought, well, I'll take some knitting, and then when they get inevitably distracted by their children, I will just sit and knit. So I did that. So I got a little bit done. And the idea is that this is going to be the back of the bag. So I am knitting up the back at the moment. And you can see I've not got very far to go comparatively. But this this stitch has a yarn over and then knit to, and then pass the yarn over the two knit stitches. And it's the passing the stitch over that it just makes it so much slower, so it's taking a really long time. Whereas all of this was just knit and slip, it was so fast. This one's taking a long time. And my bag, that you guys will have seen me dragging around with me at yarn shows and stuff, has got quite a few holes in it now and really needs replacing, so I thought, well, I'll get on with that as well then. So that is my other project at the moment. I don't have any FOs this episode, so it's straight on to stash enhancement. And before I dive into the insanity that is Yarndale, I just wanted to show you some stitch markers. Now, I showed you a while back some gorgeous yarn that Wellwoman gave me, and in with the yarn was some tea bags, and in with the tea bags was a little patch of stitch markers, but I don't think I got out and showed you guys. So, if I just try and space these out a little bit, and I'll just pop them on the needle from, which is a better picture, I'm not sure, we'll go for up here. So yeah, this is obviously the Even Star. But they're absolutely beautiful. So there's a couple of little fishy, there's a little worm or caterpillar, there's a couple of little owls, and there's a couple of little squirrels holding their little hazelnuts. So they're absolutely awesome and so cute and so fun. And I didn't feel like I actually managed to show them off. Now they're hanging so that they're sideways. I don't know if I can encourage them to turn and zoom in on that or something. We'll see what I can manage to do in the editing. But hopefully you guys can see something there, and it's not just a random tiny bit of the screen and me babbling on. But hey, what are you going to do? So, the only other thing then to show you stash enhancement wise is the bags of yarn I have down here from Yarndale. I managed to be fairly restrained at Woolfest this year. I didn't manage that at Yarndale. But I hope you will enjoy vicariously my stash enhancement. So these are in no particular order. I've literally just dumped a bag out on the floor and I'm now going to show you them. This is some amazingness from the Knitting Swede. The base is called Spartan, which is 100% superwash BFL. It's fingering weight, 100 grams, 400 meters. And the colourway is Mini Rainbow Carbon. It says Mini Rainbows scattered on my carbon base. And she showed me a what do you call it? A swatch, a sample of this knitted up, and the dark grey colour. It sort of looks very much like that's the main colour, that's the base colour, and then the little squiggles of rainbow do come out just across a few stitches, and then it's dark grey, and there's another squiggle of colour, another squiggle, and absolutely beautiful. Now it's 100% BFL, so it's not really sock yarn. I could make it into socks, they just would wear out sooner. I'm not 100% sure what I'm going to do with it, but I went on a little bit of a rainbow kick at Yarndale. Not a massive one, but I did keep my eye out for beautiful rainbows, and this was one of the ones that I spotted. I really am liking the idea of vivid colour on a dark grey background, so this was perfect because it was already put together. A staple buy for me when I see it on offer is the beautiful K.N.I.T.W.O.R.T.H.Y silk blend. If you haven't seen me rave about this before, it's 30% silk, 70% extra fine merino. It's a DK weight, and it's one of those yarns that's kind of, how do they describe it? The aim of the organisation is to bring economic and social opportunities to rural women throughout the countryside of Uruguay. So yeah, it's kind of socially responsible yarn, perhaps. You know, I'm always a little bit wary of claims like that, unless they've sort of genuinely been verified by journalism or some kind of body. But given that it's squishy gorgeousness and looks amazing, I'm happy to give them the benefit of the doubt for now. So I got this beautiful kind of tonal browns, splashes of orangey gold in there, and this beautiful light blues, very pale blues, through to a sort of medium tone blue with little splashes of sort of brown colours in, which pairs very nicely with this in terms of contrasting, but the slight browns, pale browns showing through, kind of complementing. And then thirdly, I got this gorgeous blue and grey skein. Now, the heliocentric I knit in Manos, but with a blue and white skein. But this one is absolutely gorgeous. So nice. They're all the DK weight silk blends. Manos also do a silk blend Fino, which is a fingering weight silk blend. It's the same 30% silk, 70% I think extra fine merino. Same kind of things. Oh, it does say they're proud members of the World Fair Trade Organisation, so that seems to be that they are fair trade. Doesn't have the fair trade logo on it, interestingly enough, though, which usually you would expect to see. But anyway, this beautiful kind of reddy, brassy browns, oranges, little flashes of pale in there, but so beautiful. Again, I don't, not necessarily sock yarn, silk and extra fine merino. It could be, couldn't it? Because the silk would give it the strength, but it's a bit too lovely for socks. I'm not sure. People do say that, you know, that sometimes it's silly to kind of go, oh, it's too nice for socks, and just make it into whatever you want to make it into. And I'm all about socks and hats at the moment, in terms of fingering weight yarn. But I'm thinking maybe this would make a really lovely sock hat rather than sock. We'll see. But yeah, this is all the manos that I bought myself. So happy. And I don't know what I'm going to do with any of it. And I don't care. Inspired by my knitting the Even Star shawl, which is the first lace weight yarn project, as well as lace knitting project, that I've actually done. I realised that it was really good fun to knit, and I wouldn't mind making something else again. And then I saw some absolutely beautiful lace yarn that looks like this. Ha 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 ha, look at that, oh my gosh. This is really nice, isn't it? Yeah. So this is Baby Lace by Bartat Hand Dyed Yarns. Now I had to think about that because the name is, apparently it's a thing in Yorkshire, Bartat, which means without your hat, and there's some kind of story or myth or urban legend or something about a man going out onto Ilkley Moor without a hat and dying because he didn't have a hat on. Yeah. But Bartat yarn, really, really lovely. So this is, again, baby alpaca and silk. This is 80% baby alpaca, 20% silk. But it's about 800 metres of skein, so I've got enough that I could do another Even Star if I wanted, or other big lace project. So we'll see what happens. I was chatting with Ellie on the VKN at FR&I. I think it was the VKN, it must have been the VKN. Yes, it was the VKN. And she was talking about some other lace shawls that she's got planned. And there was one that looked gorgeous. It looked like just leaves spread out in a big circle, and I thought, oh, that looked really nice. I don't know that I'd ever wear it, but I quite like the idea of leaves in this beautiful autumnal orange, and then I could drape it over something or whatever, I don't know. Who cares, right? It'll just be gorgeous and pretty! Maybe I can just swoosh it up, or I'll wear it as like a scarf or something, so I just pull it tight and I don't know. Don't know. We'll see. I just don't tend to wear any of my knitting around my neck. It's turned out that things like cowls and shawls and scarves and stuff I just haven't tended to wear. But then winter's coming up and I may well change my mind. Who knows? We'll see. But check it out. Oh, so beautiful. Oh. Now it seems I can't go to a yarn show without getting myself a skein or something from Natural Born Dyers, and this one was no exception. They have a new base out called K.N.I.T.W.O.R.T.H.Y, and it looks like this. This one is the colourway Canopy, which actually matches one of the other skeins I've already got, in terms of I already got a skein of Canopy. But I do love the green, and I was chatting with them about what to make with these, because this is, as I said, it's a new base. It's 100% superfine alpaca, hand dyed with natural plant dyes. It's now the name is it Peruvian for armadillo? Because that's where the alpaca's from, or something like that. They did tell me a bit about it, and then we got distracted by googling K.N.I.T.W.O.R.T.H.Y and trying to find what it was again, and all this kind of, as well as gabbing away as I am wont to do when I meet up with friends. But I think it's an awesome name, K.N.I.T.W.O.R.T.H.Y. It's just a really cool name. But it is absolutely gorgeous. 100% alpaca, absolutely beautiful. 100 grams, 400 yards. So it's fingering weight, and I think I'm going to make this into a pair of fingerless mitts. Now, my friend Catty just released recently her Buffy Yoga Mitts pattern, but I don't think it's for fingering weight yarn. I'd have to double check that. But she is doing a giveaway in her Ravelry group and on Instagram. So if you go and find Knit Sew Crochet is her handle on Ravelry and Instagram. If you go and find her, and it is the Ravelry group Pie and Ann? Because Pie and Ann is the name of her store, as it were. So I think the Ravelry group is Pie and Ann, and her Instagram name is Knit Sew Crochet. I'll shove links to something, I'm sure, if I remember. But I'm not sure if I'll be able to use that pattern with this yarn. So I may end up making more than one set of fingerless mitts. I wouldn't normally, be something I go for. Again, gloves isn't something I tend to wear very much. But as you know, I've been running. I think I've said that on the podcast before. I've been running. And when it's very cold, it turns out wearing a jumper isn't great when you're running. It just weighs you down. Whereas, like a little tank top thing that I wore to layer up kept my chest nice and warm, but my arms were freezing and my hands were basically numb. So I thought, well, if I get some fingerless mitts down to here, that'll stop my hands from freezing, but I won't overheat and I won't be carrying around a lot of weight, because something like some lovely superfine alpaca mitts will be nice and lightweight. But oh, it's so lovely. So yeah, check these guys out, Natural Born Dyers. They do have a website, they're on Ravelry, and this stuff is gorgeous. And it is, this particular one is this beautiful tonal greens, and they do have some amazing colourways, as you will have seen on previous episodes. So check them out. I do like to also get something new or from a dye I haven't bought before when I'm at a yarn show, and this is one of those. These guys are fairly well known, and I've seen them before, but I've never bought from them before, and that is Bar Around You. This is their Dovestone DK base, that's the base, and then Coal is the colourway. So it's 100% British wool. It's a blend of 50% blue-faced Leicester, 25% Wensleydale long wool, and 25% dark brown Masham. And it says 100% British, spun and dyed in Yorkshire. And you get 230 metres to 100 grams. So it's a DK weight. Now, I think it doesn't talk about being hand dyed or hand spun, so I think it is commercial yarn, but it is 100% British, and it feels amazing. It's so squishy, so squishy. Now I don't know what this blend's going to be like, say, against soft skin. I can definitely feel the wool in terms of it's not super soft, but it's not scratching me at all, and I'm quite fussy, and there's nothing unpleasant, but I maybe wouldn't make something for here anyway, just because over time these things can start to act up. But again, I don't know what I'm going to make with it. I got a skein of DK because, as you know, I have way too much fingering weight yarn, and you've already seen that I've bought more fingering weight yarn. But I tried to buy non-fingering weight yarn as much as possible. There was some DK from Manos, and there's another DK here. It'd probably just be a bit more of an even split, really. We'll see. Maybe I should keep track. But yeah, absolutely squishy, beautiful yarn. And I'm intrigued to see what it's like. I do know a lot of people really like Bar Around You, but I don't know why. In terms of nobody said, not just, I don't know why. It is really squishy soft, but I'm interested to see what will happen. It's got a really interesting texture to the yarn as well. It's obviously 2-ply and... well, there obviously are 2 plies rather than 2-ply as another name for like lace weight or what have you. And so it's got this lovely kind of bobbly look to the yarn, which is really fun. So yeah, see what I do with that. Other than put it in the stash, because the stash is ever growing. So I do have some more DK, and this is from a dye I have bought from before, which is 5 Moons. She had a little basket of reduced DK yarn, so a whole bunch of us were rooting through there, and these 2 beautiful skeins of pumpkin came home with me. So it's 100% superwash merino, and it's DK. I can't remember what she has a naming system. I think Comet means it's sort of a non-repeating colourway. I think it's like she dyes it up for a while and then that's it. Once it's gone, it's gone. And I'm guessing MSW means merino superwash and then DK. So I think that's what Comet MSW DK means. It's hand-painted yarn, this stuff. Hand-dyed in the Blackdown Hills of Devon. So, beautiful. And then, because I thought it would go so well with them, I also got a little brown. So 3 skeins of DK to make something fun. I'm not sure what that will make for me, but I think those 3 colours go together really nicely. So I can make something out of superwash merino with those 3 together. Or, you know, I'll pick at them and pick one skein for something and another for something else. But that was what I thought when I got them. I thought, well, those 3 will go very nicely together. But at the moment they're going in the stash because I still don't know what I want to make with them. Now these ones are sock yarn, but they're also gorgeous, so you can't blame me. And reasonably priced. So these are from the Knitting Goddess, and they are hand dyed. There's 75% superwash, 30% mixed wool, 45% British Blueface Leicester. So if that didn't make sense, that was what makes up the 75% superwash wool and 25% nylon. Did that make sense? Shall I go over that again? I've got something in my eye. That whole thing just went wrong. 75% superwash wool, 25% nylon, and the 75% wool is made up of 45% British Blueface Leicester and 30% mixed British wool. So it's very similar to the West Yorkshire Spinners sock yarn. Oh, what's the base called that I got all the bird yarns on? I can't quite remember. But that's something like 45% BFL and a bunch of other mixed fibres. This one's 45% BFL. Custom spun for us in Yorkshire, it says. 100 grams is 400 metres. And I went for the variegated skein rather than the self-striping skein because she did the same colourway in a bunch of different bases, and you can have variegated and self-striping. And I thought, well, I will probably want to make socks and or hats, but I might not get the self-striping to work, so I will just go with variegated. Also significantly cheaper. So there's this one, which is called Scooby-Doo, because, hello, if this doesn't scream Mystery Wagon to you, I don't know what does. And it is, it's green, blue, orange and brown. It's my colours! So I've got to make something out of that really, don't I? Along with this, however, I then did spot a couple of other beauties. So, same setup, same base and everything, but this one is called Bee Eater. And the Bee Eater is a bird, if you're not familiar, and it is, I think it's mostly blue with an orange stripe across its eye. This is completely from memory, I haven't looked it up, but that's how I see that as having been inspired. I would just say this is beautiful. The orangey colours is ever so slightly peachy, rather than being strict orange, and the blue colour is that sort of slightly aqua. So it's not blue and orange, it's sort of aqua and dark peach. but it's still absolutely gorgeous and still very much within my colour palette. The blue and orange is showing through there, and it's actually really lovely and tonal. There's sections where the two colours have mixed. The colours themselves are quite tonal. I can see just in a little section here the blue goes from very pale through to quite a saturated colour, and the same for the peachy orange. There's patches where it's very pale, but then equally you've got very saturated colours in other places, so it'll be really nice and tonal. And I believe that is again variegated because it came from the same section. And then last but not least is this beautiful colourway. This one is called Tortoiseshell, which is really interesting, but I can actually see that. It's less obvious, but if you think about some of those sort of old antique-y things, tortoiseshell colours and things like that, then that really, that's what it really kind of connects with for me. So there's these beautiful kind of woody browns, and then in there's grey, almost a sort of an oatmeal-y grey, a corny grey, as in like wheat, not it's a bit corny. And then there's kind of a pale oatmeal colour, sort of a reddy brown, and then a golden brown, and just really interesting colours. But they're all very neutrals, all blend together really nicely, but really interesting to look at. So I thought, oh yes, that's very pretty. And again, very much in my colour palette, this one being the less jazzy compared to, say, these two, but absolutely just as beautiful in its own right, and just a different aesthetic, so for something a little bit more muted perhaps. Now these are all sock yarns, so the chances are all three of these will become socks, because I want to knit more socks! And when I get past what I'm doing at the moment, I'm going to try and make sure that I make time to knit socks alongside. I've got another sock project still sat there waiting for me to get back to it, so we'll see. But for now, the Knitting Goddess, based in Harrogate, she also has a website, thenittinggoddess.co.uk, yeah, I'll make sure I link to all the vendors and stuff below. I think I can remember to do that. Beautiful. So yeah, there we go. Next I have another rainbow yarn, and this one is a little bit more obviously rainbow than the previous one I showed. Ta-da! Oh my god, it's amazing, I love it. So this was dyed by Midwinter Yarns, and the label says it's 100% Swedish wool, svenska ull, and it's a 2-ply wool yarn. However, it says length 300 meters. It doesn't give a weight in grams, but I'm saying it's probably 100 grams. It kind of feels the same as other 100 gram skeins. So it might well be a sport weight. And it certainly doesn't quite look as thick as a DK, but it's that similar to bobbly plies, a bit like the Barham U one I showed you earlier, but not quite as airy and is that the right word? Airy? Lofty. There we go, that's the fancy term I'm trying to think of. It says the gauge is 20 stitches per 10 centimetres and needles 4. I assume that means a 4mm needle and not you have to use 4 needles. The colourway is Lapland and it's absolutely beautiful. And yeah, so the yarn itself is Ull Centrum, and it says 100% Swedish wool collected from Swedish farms by Ull Centrum. But the dyer is Midwinter Yarns. So it's interesting because it's not labelled Midwinter Yarns, it's labelled Ull Centrum, which is obviously their supplier. So Midwinter Yarns, you need to get on your branding and do something about that. But the colourway, if I haven't said already, is Lapland. And she was saying that it's based on the beautiful, colourful costumes of the Now it's either Saami or Suomi. I think it's Saami, but it might be spelt less obviously that, or I'm mixing two things in my head, like the Suomi and the Saami or something. I apologise for not being 100% sure on that. But it's absolutely beautiful, and you know, you can see it, you can kind of picture those costumes almost immediately when you see something like this, can't you? But it does have a full rainbow in here. I can see red, orange, yellow, green, blue, and some purple. It looks like the orange and the purple and the green are where the colours are blending. The green less obviously, but I think the purple and the orange might be just where the colours are blending. So red and yellow to make the orange and so on. Just because you can kind of see within those colours, actually, it's sort of a mix of the two. But it's so beautiful that I'm not complaining at all. I think it's gorgeous. So yeah, that's what it looks like. And it's not super super soft yarn. It's not horribly scratchy, but it is wool. I know people talk about the bite of wool, and it you know, it does have that kind of you can feel the firmness in the fibres against your skin. So again, I'm not kind of sure what I would make from this, but gloves would be good, nice and tough, or some kind of like one of those kind of peak hat things that kind of do that type, you know, flat and or something like that, something kind of cool and of the region. So yeah, something like that perhaps. We'll see. The last of the rainbow yarns that I got, I think I've only got 3 in the whole weekend, was this rather fun yarn from the rather funnily named Puddle Bums. I've not heard of them before, but they've apparently been around a little while, and it says hand-dyed yarn from the heart of the Pennines, which actually reminds me of what's the podcast name? What's the proper name of the podcast? Because it's Mama Linda and Brianne, and they coming from the heart of the Ozarks. But I can't remember. I can't remember the name of the podcast. Oh, that's awful. I'm so sorry. Nearly. Nope, my brain's not doing it. Anyway, they're amazing. Maybe I'll remember. Oh, I'm going to have to go through and watch all of this and try and remember all the things that I want to write down, aren't I? Ugh. Anyway, let's get back to the yarn. So it is 85% superwash merino, 15% Donegal nep. So it is a tweed yarn, as you can potentially see already. And the whole range that they had with them at Yarndale was these kind of this setup of skein where it had a base colour and then this splash of rainbow in it. And they did have some knitted up samples, and it did they do look very similar to how the Knitting Goddess yarn I showed look, in terms of you've got base colour with these little squiggles of rainbow showing up. This is just a different way of obviously having the skein wound. The Knitting Goddess had rewound her skein, so the colours weren't all lining up like this from the way they'd been dyed. These guys haven't. They've arranged it in this way. And that's just really interesting, because I think the reskeined yarn looks more like the finished product. The colour is there's flashes of colour throughout, whereas here I almost expect it to be that it would knit in stripes or something like that, and you have to kind of go, oh no, maybe not. But they did have lots of knitted samples out, so you could kind of see what you were buying anyway. But it's quite a fun rainbow. It actually goes from almost down to white, very pale, and it goes through this kind of fuchsia pink, into a more magenta-y colour, through into almost a red. It never quite stops being that kind of pinkish colour. Then it starts to pale out into an orangey, a pinky orange, so a bit of a peachy colour, then through into more of a clear orange, but only very briefly before it flicks through into this beautiful, bright, sort of neon yellow. Oh. That quickly transforms into a grassy green. From there we go a light sort of summer grassy green. From there it does go a little bit darker, but then very quickly from there goes through into a kind of a teal, straight into a light aqua blue, and almost immediately then straight into a darker blue, almost slightly purple, before then returning to the base colour, which is this beautiful shade of grey. So yes, this idea of having flashes of rainbow on this dark base was really just appealing to me, so I ended up getting 2 skeins of that. It's not a sock yarn because it doesn't have anything stabilising in it. It's just superwash merino and Donegal nep. It says Donegal nep sock, but I'm assuming that just means fingering weight or what have you, or full socks. There's nothing to suggest it's going to be hard wearing for socks. But oh, just look at that! Look at that beautiful splash of colour inside the gorgeous, gorgeous grey. And I just thought the tweeding would make it interesting. And give it a little bit of extra texture or something for whatever I make. So again, I really don't know what I'm going to make out of this. It could be a hat, it could be something random. I have a feeling it's going to go into stash for a little while until I find the right pattern, and until I force myself to knit with some of these beautiful, beautiful yarns. Hey, I keep buying yarn, people are not knitting, and nowhere near enough. Oh dear. I think that was all from day 1. I didn't get as much on day 2, but I did still keep shopping. And one stall was getting rid of their Bergère de France stock, so I went and grabbed some yumminess. Now ignore the random sort of mini skein attached. That's because I had some left over from the baby knit project that I finished a little while back, and that I finally took over to give to the parents of said little baby. Unfortunately, it was definitely still a little big for him, so he will grow into that and still be able to wear it. And his little booties and the hat and everything, and they loved it. It was awesome. And the only bad thing was that I was running late. So I had planned to get there an hour before I was then going to have to go off somewhere else, and instead I got there pretty much when I was needing to leave, so I only spent about 5-10 minutes there before running off to get to where I then needed to go that evening. But you know, new parents, kind of a little visit is probably a nice thing. Say ahs, hold the baby, say it's really cute, give them some love, and then let them just rest whilst they can. So yeah, these are the Chanel base, and the colour is Citrouille. I have to give it a French accent because it's all obviously written as French stuff, and it just would be Citrouille or something, which is kind of like half French. Citrouille, if you're going to do it just in English. It's, ugh. So I'm just going to have to. French is my second language, so I kind of have to. Otherwise it feels horribly wrong. But fortunately the dye lot matches the one that I already had, so that was kind of convenient. So I got 2 skeins of that, and I got 3 skeins of this lovely grey. These again are sort of tweedy yarns. The base is a tweedy base. This is called anthracite. That's the same in French and English. Anthracite. Anthracite. But yeah, the reason I got these was it took me 3 skeins to make the big, and then a little less than 1 skein to make the hat and booties, and I thought, well, I'll get a couple of the orange because it's orange and I like it. and I'll get enough to do a whole other baby grow if I want to, or I can just do lots of little things. But it's good for baby knits because it is machine washable. It sort of says 30 degrees synthetics or something, you know. But it is machine washable because it's 56 acrylic, 30% wool, 10% alpaca, 4% viscose. So it's got some really nice stuff in it, but you can still chuck it in the machine, which is a must for baby clothes. So I was saying to my friends, you can machine wash it, preferably at 30 in a synthetics wash. It's actually double underlined, which I think means like delicates. But I'm like, just chuck it in the machine, and if it shrinks slightly, then because I knit a very big size, and the baby's a quite small baby, hopefully it will still fit, and then it will stop shrinking once it's shrunk and finished shrinking, and then he'll still be able to wear it, and they don't have to muck about with it, because it's like if you make something for a newborn baby, you need it to be machine washable, people. But you know, this was a Bergère de France pattern, baby knits, all of that. They're big on their baby stuff, so I figure it must be possible to make stuff for babies out of this, and for new parents to be able to cope with it. And if I'm wrong, then hey, I've got 5 balls, very very cheap, and I'll just get rid of them somehow. But yeah, so hopefully. These will become some more baby knits. I do have 2 other friends that have recently had babies that I could potentially make stuff for, but I'm not feeling particularly generous at the moment. I just want to knit for me. And I'm already knitting this epic lace shawl for other people, in the sense that, it's not just for me that I'm knitting this. So, yeah, we'll see. But anyway, it could be at some point some more baby knits. Maybe. So they were all, I think, DK or worsted weight, something like that. These are sock yarn. They are fingering weight. However, they are new to me. So I was trying to decide which one to show you first. From Woo Sheeps, they have something called the Angus Woo 2, which is 2 skeins of contrasting yarn. And I thought, oh my god, Spider-Man! So I decided to grab me some of this. Now it is basically just 2 half skeins, 2 50-gram skeins of fingering weight. It's not, they're dyed separately, so there's 1 blue skein and 1 red skein that have just been twisted together into 1 skein to be sold together as a pairing. And I'm umming and ahhing between whether I think this is amazing or kind of awful. Obviously I bought a couple of them because I thought they were amazing, and then afterwards I was like, oh, well, it's really just some tonal red and some tonal blue yarn, and I don't have 100 grams of either. And, if I use them to make socks, I basically just have 1 red sock, 1 blue sock. And I don't know, I was like, oh. But then I know the colours go together really well, and they'd be automatically mismatching, but I could still wear them as a pair. Or I could do like colour work in the sense of either something more complicated and invert the colours, or do like half one colour, half the other, or like use one colour to be the cuffs, heels and toes on the other on a sock, and then swap the colours for the other sock so they'd be, sort of inverse of each other. Something like that could be quite fun, actually. So yeah, maybe that would work. I struggled to think what I was going to do with them, but that actually I quite like the idea of heel, cuffs and toes being the contrasting colour, and then obviously swapping which one's which on the second sock. So I'll have some Spider-Man socks and some forest socks. This kind of makes me think of like Lothlorien or something like that. Some elvish forest. And so I know the colours go together, but I can do something interesting with the colour. That's kind of where it's good. So it is nice that you can kind of see the colours and go, yes, I'll get enough to do 100-gram project, a single skein project, but I'll have 2 colours to work with, and I can keep the colours separate for colour work and what have you. So yeah, the more I think about it, the more I kind of can see reasons why it's a really cool idea. So this is the Angus Woo2. Angus is their base. That means it's 75% superwash merino, 25% nylon. So they are a sock base. Total is 100 grams, approximately 424 meters. And they do have a website, but on the label they've covered it up. They've taped over it. So I think it's woosheeps.com or .co.uk, because the name is Woo Sheeps. But I've not heard of them before, so worth checking out. I think they're from Scotland. So I seem to be going sock yarn, not sock yarn, sock yarn, not sock yarn, and I'm continuing that pattern with a beautiful, oh my gosh, beautiful skein of DK yarn from Triskelion Yarn and Fibre. Oh my gosh. So I heard people talking about these, but I hadn't seen any of the yarn. And then I bumped into John from Easy Knits in the aisles, and was like, I want a selfie! Because I was selfieing with everybody at Yarndale. If you haven't seen my Instagram feed, you can see basically not quite everyone I met, either because some people actually didn't want to do a selfie. There's only one person that actually refused. And in the nicest way possible. And then some people because, particularly over lunch, trying to get a selfie with everybody would have just been crazy. So I got a selfie with the people that I was sat next to. Although I met a whole bunch of other people as well. So I'm sorry I didn't get a selfie with you guys. But I accosted John and got myself a selfie, and then he was like, I'm just going to go to Triskelion Yarn. And I was like, I've been hearing about them. I think I need to come see this too. Show me. So he took me over to the stall, and there was this. So it's like it used to be a sort of a tealy turquoise, dark turquoise, and then it's somehow someone cast a shadow spell on it, and now you can only see that colour through these murky shadows. So it's these dark tones. It's like the bright colour is hiding behind them, so you kind of expect it to jump out at you and pop at any moment. And it's just an amazing kind of impact on my eye. It's fascinating to look at as a colour. So absolutely gorgeous. It's 100% British superwash blue-faced Leicester. 100 grams is 225 metres. Triskelion. So yeah, and it's gorgeously soft. It's BFL. It's lovely. I don't know what it's going to be. DK. I don't have a particular plan in my head for the DK stuff. The fingering weight, I was like, right, socks, hats, fingering weight, gloves and mitts, what have you. I think Catty's pattern is DK weight. I think. It could be something else, to be honest. I really don't know. I've forgotten. But if it is, then I might use this to make mitts using her pattern. But yay, how beautiful is that? Another sock yarn then, and this is a revisit to the Bartat's hand-dyed yarns stall, where I found this kind of crazy skein. So the yarn looks like it's got sort of over twist in it or something for some reason. I'm not quite sure what that's about. It's kind of got these little twing in the yarn. But it is 75% British BFL, 25% nylon. So it's a sock base. So I think my sock bases will probably all be made into socks, because I have enough fingering weight that's not sock yarn that I'll use that to do things like hats and what have you. The length is approximately 425 metres for 100 grams, so that's not bad yardage. I'll definitely have plenty left over for something. And it's their Wharf yarn base, which was really not expensive at all. But it's BFL and nylon. So yeah, Bartat are definitely one I'm going to keep an eye out for in the future. Price-wise, they're really good, and they've still created some gorgeous colourways. It's just the slight twiddliness of the yarn that confuses me as to what's going on, but I'm sure it'll knit up fine, and once it's been soaked and blocked and what have you, it'll be absolutely perfect. The colours here are this slightly uncertain orangey, browny, there's flecks of dark brown, there's flecks of orange, or sort of short runs I should say rather than flecks. But then the actual colours in between time is these kind of indeterminate colours in between. Very autumnal, very dried leaves, that kind of thing, which is just what the street outside is covered in at the moment, and it looks beautiful, so really, really beautiful. I wish I just could knit everything now. Ah! The last of my fingering weight yarns is a little sample ball that I got off of Jolie's Kitchens stall. So that's Jolie, who I talked about before with regards to the tech editing stuff that I'm now doing. And she had a little jar just of tiny little hand-wound balls of fingering wool and she scraps, and she was just like, help yourself, and I was like, oh my god, can I have one? So this is like my little Jolie ball, and I don't know if I'll actually use it for anything or just keep it as a little memento, because I'm a little bit manic like that. But we'll see. But I just thought, it's my colours, it's blue, orange and white, it's beautiful. I've no idea what it's made of, base, anything like that. I could see if there's any information about a similar colourway on her Ravelry page, but there might not be. But it's squishy and it's fun, and it's about the size of a large bouncy ball or a gobstopper. Kind of cool. So yeah, that's it for fingering weight yarn. My next skein then says it's 4-ply, but there is no way that this is fingering weight yarn. It is way too thick. I would put it at a DK, possibly even into a worsted at times. It's slightly inconsistent. And it says it's a mill spun, but it does look like it's slightly, just ever so slightly inconsistent in terms of its wraps per inch. But there's no way that this is going to be fingering yarn. I don't know what the base is at all or anything. I got this as a gift from the wonderful Natalie, who is Natta's Knits. There's her name, Natta's Knits. I kept going over and chatting with her over the course of the weekend when there wasn't some money on her stall. Had a wonderful time gabbing away after having sort of originally met her on the VKN, so it's always cool to meet people you know from the VKN. And I helped to dismantle and carry her stall back to her car at the end of the weekend, because I was still there at closing time. Despite having said about 3 hours earlier I was going to leave. So she very kindly said, oh please take a skein of yarn as a thank you gift. So it's 100 grams, it says 4-ply mill spun, but I'm going to treat it as a DK I think. And the colourway is Shades of Green. I don't know what the fibre is, but it's lovely and squishy. It smells slightly sheepy, so I don't think it's acrylic, certainly. I wouldn't expect Natalie to just work on a pure acrylic base anyway, but because it doesn't say, I really don't know. Maybe Natalie can tell me. But it's beautiful, is what it is, so I shall be playing with this at some point as well. Again, no idea what I'm going to make from it. The last two that I have to show you are both special, and so I'm ending on a bit of a high, and that's because they are both hand-spun yarns and spun by my friends. So the first one is also by Natta's Knits, and this was a little sample. Again, she was handing out little samples of her hand spun to, I think, to the kiddies as they went past, and she gave me this beautiful, beautiful colourway, which I'm calling Rhubarb and Custard, because it reminds me of those rhubarb and custard sweets, and rhubarb and custard as in crumble, and I think there used to be a children's TV programme called Rhubarb and Custard. But yeah, just, oh, so, 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 so beautiful. And it is a hand spun, so it's wonderfully tactile, and it smells lovely, and it feels lovely, and it's got these dashes of this yellow in there, and then barber poling, and then this lovely, ooh, fuchsia, but it's too purple for fuchsia, purple fuchsia, with bits of magenta in there, and it's just a wine, is it like a wine colour, and a sort of a purpley grape colour, just, oh, so lovely, so, so, so lovely, tonal and then plied together and all these kinds of things, so absolutely gorgeous. And last to show you guys, I have 109 yards of Shetland wool. So this is by Jolie's Kitchen. This is Jolie. She does hand spun as well as patterns and tech editing and all kinds of stuff. And she is on Periscope at roughly 2 o'clock every day. So if you like Periscope, go and check out Jolie's Kitchen. She's described it as an Aran to bulky weight, because obviously it's hand spun, but it's pretty regular. And the colours in here are just, again, I love it when I can't quite tell what to call it. So it's like a purpley brown with red added in. The browns have got looks of the rusty brown, and then you've got these very reddy brown, russety kind of colours. But there's all kinds of stuff in here. There's a little patch of sort of a pale grey brown in there. There's a patch of purple, a patch of a dark brown. There's kind of some orangey colours in the centre here. Red, there's just almost plain red running through bits of it. So really, really interesting. And I was chatting with Jolie on the stand about what can I possibly make with this, because it's 109 yards, it's not massively long. And I was saying, would it be enough for a hat? And so we looked at hat patterns on her stall, and she was like, for that kind of weight, 109 yards, you'd probably only get a child's hat. You wouldn't necessarily get an adult's hat, and got a big head, yo. It's not excessively huge, but it is certainly adult size, adult medium. But then she looked at another of her patterns, and that recalled for 100 yards of bulky, or Aran I think it was, for a cowl. And I had been admiring the stitch pattern on that cowl. So she gave me a copy of that pattern and was like, here you go, as a gift. So I will almost certainly be making this up into that cowl. I did say earlier I don't tend to wear cowls. That's fine. It may be that it then goes in a gift basket. I do think perhaps I need to start trying to separate in my head things that I would love to try and knit from things that I want to wear, and shift into that slightly more long-term knitter thing where you have all this knitting you're doing and eventually you end up having to give some of it away anyway, so it kind of becomes Christmas presents and things like that. So we'll see what happens, but this is absolutely beautiful, and I think it's a wonderful yarn to finish on, hand-spun gorgeousness, and the last of my stash enhancement for this episode. It's time for the community section then, and it's going to be a short one because I haven't thought of anything much to talk about. However, I do still have the list of questions from Topher that I am working my way through, and I believe this week it is question 6, which is, which sound do you hate the most? Let me just double check that. It was, yeah, what sound or noise do you hate? And as I was saying last episode, when it was what sound or noise do you love, I really like quiet, calm, tranquil, peaceful sounds. So sound that I hate would sort of be the opposite of that. Something that's really that sort of puts my hackles up or puts me on edge. So that can be a variety of different things. Not necessarily sort of loud music, because sometimes loud music can be what you want. I would say there's the obvious things, like just unpleasant noises. So babies crying, fingers down a blackboard, rubbing your fingers across a balloon, knife and fork on a plate. You know the ones. In fact, your teeth are probably hurting like mine are right now just thinking about them. After that, however, then some of the things that really bugs me is when I can just hear light music or a radio, because it hooks my brain and I find it really hard to ignore it, because it feels like someone's trying to talk to me, but they're talking so quietly I can't hear them quite properly and I have to strain. And it really, my ears are just like, oh, what are they saying? What are they saying? What are they saying? I've got to try and work it out. Or that kind of, when it becomes that, or when it's that kind of noise, like if my other half has the radio on and I can't really work out what they're saying, but I can tell they're talking, oh, it makes me so uncomfortable. That I will either stick my headphones on and just play random noise to myself, or I'll go through and be like, you have to either turn that down or turn it up a lot, one way or the other, because I can't stand where it's at the moment. So that kind of thing really bugs me. I can't think of any other obvious noises that wind me up. Soaps. And I'm pretty sure people will know what I mean when I just say that, because you can tell the sound of a soap, right? As in a soap opera. Not bars of fat you clean yourself with. Or rendered fat, I should say, originally. Anyway, so Coronation Street, EastEnders, Emmerdale Farm, Neighbours, Hollyoaks, Home and Away, Archers on the radio, anything like that. It is the whiny, self-pitying, woe is me, everything is terrible, I can't possibly just get on with my life. Ugh. Noise that the characters in these things make that I absolutely just, it puts me on edge. And it amuses my other half no end. Not in the sense that he torments me with it, but he's just like, you really don't like soaps, do you? And he thinks it's an elitist thing. Like, it's only stupid people watch soap operas. That's probably because at some point I've said that whilst I've been angry. But it's actually, it's the fact that in a soap opera, nobody is, none of the characters are allowed to be rational or calm or centered or okay with the world or enlightened or anything like that. They all have to be the epitome of self-centered and ignorant and because it's all about creating drama, and drama comes out of people when they're not in that centered, happy, grounded place. I'm sure we all have people in our lives that are like that, and you're just like, oh, it's like living in a soap opera being next to you. And I can't stand those people either, or at least not for long periods of time, because it just drives me absolutely spare. It sets my nerves on edge. I think there's something about my empathy levels in relation to that where I can't help but feel their suffering, their pain, as it were, but then I feel it in my body, in my way, so I'm not then numbed to it in the way that people often are. I just feel it as this horribly uncomfortable, gotta move, kind of sensation. It does, it makes me clench. So that particular sort of sound, in terms of like tone of voice, way of speaking, that kind of thing, drives me to distraction. So yeah, that's going to be my answer for the question. And as far as community runs, I suppose that's kind of it, really. I would say a massive thank you and love you and hi to anyone watching that I got to meet at Yarndale. It was amazing. I mean, what can I tell you about Yarndale other than if you get the chance you should go? Ooh. It was a weekend. It was based in Skipton, up near Manchester, just for those of you who aren't familiar with it particularly. It's in a auction mart, so I think sort of a place you sell cattle and sheep and that kind of thing in pens, and people walk up and down and see them, and there's a little bidding lecture theatre type place. So the classes and stuff take place in the lecture theatre area, and then all the stalls are set up in pens. What was really nice about it was that they had several seating areas. They had three, well, they had two lecture places and then a third kind of tiered seating area that was just for chilling out in, where there was actually someone also selling bulk bags of yarn. And I think they had nearly 200 vendors, which is just insane. And there was room for more. So it's a really, really cool place to have a yarn festival. Quite close to Manchester, so not too hard to get to. And for me, I do the same as I did at Woolfest, which is I go and visit my aunt who's up that end of the country. And then we both go to one day, and then I went on my own on the second day because I then drive past it on my way home, basically. So I go down to that and then drive on home. And the actual experience was beyond compare. It really was. I was on such a high the whole weekend. Not just from the yarn fumes, and that obviously had something to do with it, but it's one of the first times I have really felt like I could be me, and I didn't have to worry about being too much. I could be full-on crazy me, I could get overexcited about stuff, and the only reaction I got from people was sheer joy. And it was just wonderful, absolutely wonderful. If you've ever been bullied or put down or dismissed, which everybody has at some point, but if you've had it done regularly, then you will know that feeling of I've got to be careful how I am around other people because they might react badly. And it's happened often enough that it can cause me problems. It can really ruin my day, my ability to get on with what I want to do, the environment in which I have to live and work. So to be surrounded by so much positive reinforcement, to be surrounded by people who were happy to see me, who recognised me and got excited and I was posting loads of selfies, so by the afternoon of the first day and during the second day I had people kind of like going, oh, I get a selfie as well, I've seen your selfies, and no, and it was like, you know, that I was part of the community and recognised, wanted, appreciated, enjoyed, celebrated, just, oh my god, so good, so good. And I have talked before about how amazingly healing the knitting community has been, both through the podcast, through Ravelry, and through the shows previously, but Yarndale this year was a step above and beyond what I've experienced so far. I really felt welcome and loved. And for me, for all of me, for my craziness, for my good moods and my bad moods, for whatever I was bringing, that I could approach people, I could talk to strangers, I could say, I want to take a selfie with you please, and people were up for that. Everything that I wanted to be able to do, to go and buy yarn, to talk to dyers and friends, to meet people I met online. I got all of these things happening and it all went super well. And I am emotional about it. That's how good it was. I am genuinely tears in my eyes right now. So happy, so happy, and it is healing. It is that kind of, you know, some of those tears are old hurts being allowed to heal by having an experience such as this. Just fantastic. So if you haven't been to a yarn festival before, then perhaps this will inspire you to go to one. Being surrounded by people who get it, and only people who get it, no naysayers. There were a few people, there were a few blokes that did look like they were doing the dutiful trudging, but nobody was, you know, none of them were going to give me a hard time, what have you, for wandering around covered in bags of yarn and my orange hat that I always wear now at the festival. I'm going to have to knit more sock hats just so that I can have something else to wear. But even I didn't feel out of place. I didn't feel judged. I didn't feel anything negative from them. They just were maybe tired. A lot of the chaps that I met were yarny chaps like me, and oh guys, it is. It is an experience to be in among your people. Oh, it is special. And if you have not found that yet, keep looking, because it is worth every single fight to find that. Very special weekend. So a massive thank you as I sit here crying to everybody who made that weekend so special. Whether you guys were with me on Instagram or in person, or whether you're there celebrating with me now, you guys are what make my knitting such an important part of my life. I enjoy knitting. I love the knitting community. I think that's fair to say. I really enjoy knitting, don't get me wrong. I'm not saying I don't really like it or anything crazy like that. But what sustains my knitting, what brings me back to knitting and podcasting, are the people that I meet through it. Almost without exception, the nicest, most generous bunch of people I have ever met. Never a bad word. Always supportive, always caring. I'm going to have a break for a second. I love you guys. Right, so I've had a moment, and I can now get on with the wonderfully joyous task of properly launching the Lanitium X Machina giveaway. I've had the all clear from Nia to say that the website is up and running and launched. So if you would like to win one of these amazing skeins of yarn, then here's what you have to do. Go along to lanitiumxmachina.com and have a look at the amazing, gorgeous yarns that she has on offer there. Have a good look through, and I am looking for a decent amount of text in your post entry, okay? I do not want to see a colourway name or something like that. I want a reasoned review of her yarn. Reasons why it's awesome, things she could do better, particularly bases that are attractive to you, ones that you would avoid and why, anything you're worried about, anything you think, oh, what might stop you buying from an internet seller online, something like that. These yarns are worthy of your time and effort. So, there's 3 of them to give away. So I will do one every podcast for the next 3 podcasts. If you go and put an entry in the forum, that will count from as soon as your entry is in until I finish drawing. So if you get in there sharpish before the next podcast, then you'll be in there to win any one of these 3 yarns. Obviously, once you've won one, I will not count you for the others. Just to remind you, these are all glitter sock, so they are 70% superwash merino, 25% nylon, 5% stellina. There is 3.5 ounces or 100 grams, which is 435 yards or 400 meters. So a fairly standard sock yarn skein. We have Star Trek Into Darkness. Oh, with the stars and everything in it. I would say, up close in person, this is greys and blues. It's like quite a grey-blue base. It's a dark blue, so it's almost like a dark indigo hue, but the saturation varies a lot from pale to mid, and then with that is a much darker black. You know, when you can sometimes, it feels like it might be a really dark purple rather than a black. Kind of feels like a little bit like that, which may be where the black and the blue have overlapped slightly. So it's this lovely tones of blacky, grey, blue colours. Really beautiful. Then we have Lothlorien. Gorgeous mystical forest with sparkly elvish dust. So we've got the foresty greens from the slightly paler yellows through to the nice dark rich greens. There's splashes of brown in there. There's and then there's these colour sort of splashes of kind of mystical colours. So we've got reds, almost a pale sage, slight kind of yellow, a patch of this kind of indigo-y blue again, and then and kind of all the overlaps of those colours and all the amazing kind of things in between of them all. So this one is Lothlorien. And then third we have Warlock. which reminds me of kind of that orc skin kind of mystic, magical, sparkly amazingness. So this is yellows and greens and browns. The yellow is a greeny yellow. It doesn't go to a full yellow. It's a greeny pale. It's a yellowy green through into a full green, into a browny green, perhaps with splashes of full brown, but mostly it's tones and tones of green, and it is beautiful. So there we go. They're the three. Do I? I think I'm going to say, in your post, if you specify a order of priority for the yarns, and should you win, then I will use that to decide which skein a person gets. If the person that wins doesn't make a preference, I shall select one at random. But if you're like, oh my gosh, I really want this one, because the blues in this is more your colour than the greens in these two, then you would say in your post all of your blurb about the new website, the yarns, the bases, the colourways. Let's, I'm being quite serious here. One sentence or one word entries are just going to be cold. I will either ignore them or delete them, depending on how I'm feeling. Or if I'm feeling really generous, I will edit them and stick a note at the bottom going, insufficient for entry. We'll see. You need to write a decent amount of info. Think of it as you give a little bit of market research for Nia, and Nia gives you the chance to win these amazing yarns, and that really only seems fair. And for hosting this, I get to keep one of my own, which was the one I showed you guys last time. Hey, a lot of work goes into podcasting, alright? It's not an easy job. So that's really, I'm talking to my internal demons there, aren't I? Because I'm pretty sure you guys aren't going to begrudge me getting a skein of yarn, but inside my head I'm going, oh, you get yarn for nothing! I don't know why he speaks in an odd accent, but apparently he does. Anyway, getting back to the awesomeness that is a chance to win these yarns. So go to the thread. I'll repeat this is the kind of stuff I think you guys should be thinking about, but you don't have to do like a checklist of James has said this. It's so long as you've shown a real interest and you've written something up, then you can stand a chance to win one of these skeins of yarn. And they are amazing, so they are worth you taking the time to do that. And yeah, I think that is probably going to be everything for the podcast today, guys. So I don't have anything else lined up today. I'm going to call it here because with all of the stash enhancement, it's probably already still a full-length episode for me. An overly long episode for a lot of other people, or an extra-length episode for other people, I should say. For a lot of you out there, my length of podcast is just the right length of podcast. Oh dear, this is all going to places I wasn't meaning it to. So I'm going to sign off. As always, guys, I love you lots. Thank you very much for watching, and I shall see you guys soon. Cheers for now. Bye!